I want to talk about, we can do it like this. Let's talk about chess, like sex.
Oh, let's talk about rooks and pawns.
Hey.
Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may spawn.
Is all the good things and all the bad things a part of the song, Let's Talk About Sex?
Yeah.
I guess there's bad things, like sometimes you make an awful mess. So chess is the opposite of sex in a lot of ways, if you really think about it. I'm a pretty new fan of this here mind sport that we call chess, or some people call chess. But it really boils down everything that I really love about games into this like simple rule set with infinitely deep implications. And my goal for including it on the show is to get you, Rachel, or Julie, I don't know who's in there right now.
Rachel's here now.
Really excited about chess, so you'll start playing it with me. So chess, I have notes here on what fucking chess is. But it really is very, very simple. There's only 6 pieces, right? Pawn, rook, knight, bishop, king, and queen. And everybody's got 16 pieces. You got a bunch of pawns and less of the other ones. And the point of the game is to trap the opponent's king in an inescapable position, putting them in checkmate. That's it. That's more or less it. I mean, there's some other shit.
Did you say king or queen?
King. The queen can move around however she wants. She's like your best piece, which is true, I feel like, in so many ways. The game has pretty ancient origins. It's presumed to have originated in India before the 7th century. And those origins kind of actually, as is the case with so many things, especially like games and folk games, inspired very, very similar but just slightly different versions of chess in different countries throughout the world. But what I think is so great about chess, and the reason that I think it's a very, very good game, and the reason that I kind of got into it, I got into it for the first time basically right when Henry was born, and we had these overnight shifts where he just wasn't sleeping, and so we would stay up, and he would be asleep in our arms, and we couldn't really do anything with one of our arms, and so I'd use the other arm to play chess, because you can do that just with one hand. What I find so fascinating...
On his phone, by the way, not...
No, me and Henry would play very, very... he's like grandmaster level. So chess, I promise, it's going to get interesting here real soon. What is so cool about chess is that it looks really simple, right? Each player has 16 pieces. That's 32 pieces total on a 64 square board. And all you got to do is capture the other king or put them in an inescapable position. But despite the fact that the game seems so simple and there's, only 6 different types of pieces, it can play out in so many different ways. And so this is a thing I found on a publication called Pop Sci, which says almost nothing looks more orderly than the chess pieces before a match starts. The first move, however, begins a spiral into chaos. After both players move, 400 possible board setups exist. After the second pair of turns, there are 197,742 possible games. And after 3 moves, 121 million. After every turn, players chart a progressively more distinctive path, and each game evolves into one that has probably never been played before.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Like, you look at the board, and it's like such an iconic sort of game, right? I feel like a lot of people know or think they know exactly how they feel about chess. Because it's just like, oh, you look at it and you think you understand it. There are some statisticians who estimate that the total number of possible chess games that are conceivably possible to be played out is 10 to the order of 100,000, which is more atoms than there are in the universe by a pretty significant total. It is a nearly infinite sort of game where every time you play it, you're probably maybe even playing it in a way that nobody else has before, especially if you're very bad at chess and you make all kinds of illogical choices. Because there's about 15,000 or so, according to this article I read, about 15,000 or so kind of like fairly common games that play out. Usually it takes about 30 or 40 turns before one of the players gets the other one in checkmate, but I mean, it can go anywhere. And I just find that so fascinating from a game design perspective, because I talk about that. I feel like I talked about that when we talked about Splendor, which is another game that I think is very, very cool. And I like that in a game where it's a simple game to understand, but there's lots of different ways it can play out. I think chess probably has that one on lockdown, because there's more ways that chess can play out than there are atoms in the universe, which is kind of bonkers. But that makes the game sound like super chaotic and probably not very accessible. What I like about it and why I've gotten really into it, I used a website called chess.com, which I kind of thought about actually bringing as my favorite thing, just this website, chess.com, because it's a very, very good website. But it teaches you just sort of different strategies. And I'm not talking about like, oh, you must understand the Bertolucci opening before you can take part in professional chess. Things that are like really common sort of strategies that you have to do in every game. Things like trying to get a material advantage by having more pieces on the board than they do, or setting up your opponent in a position where they are going to lose a piece no matter what they do on their next turn. And it teaches you like common ways to do that. And it teaches you like traps that you can set for your opponent. For example, it's possible to win a game of chess in, I think, 4 moves is the least amount of moves. And so it teaches you like, if they make this mistake and then they make this mistake, you've just won at chess.
Yeah.
Which I think is like, it has made the game, which I feel like I respected before, as like, oh, this is for geniuses, like who want to memorize different openings and different things, which is still, yes, very true. But there's also like very common sort of threads that connect these 10 to the 100,000 power games.
What has always been hard for me about chess is that when I play a game, I tend to only be playing my own game. Like I'm coming up with my own strategy and my own approach. It's very hard for me to do the thing that chess asks you to do, which is play your opponent's game at the same time too. So for every move you're considering and every strategy you're building, identifying what your opponent might be doing. And that's always been really challenging for me.
It is, and it's something that I struggle with. I don't play as much anymore. I actually just started playing again, because I had a day where I wasn't really doing much. I was editing a podcast and I was like, oh, I'll go to chess.com, see what's up. And now I'm kind of back into it. And I get my ass kicked a lot when I play against other players, or they have like an AI that you can play against and change like the difficulty settings, it's such a fucking cool website. But it is a game sort of about you trying to think a few moves in advance while your opponent is also trying to think a few moves in advance. Then they will make a move that sort of throws your whole plan into the toilet and flushes it to be in the sewer with all the poop. But, the like most common successful strategy is to just put your opponent in a position where they have to do something. It's really a race to see who can be the first person to put pressure. For example, the big sort of mechanic in chess is you put the opponent's king in check by endangering them. So if you move a piece that can capture the king before the other player can do anything else, they have to move their king or capture the piece that's endangering their king, or if they have to move another piece into the firing line, so to speak. And using that like form of pressure, like, oh, I'm guaranteeing that you have to do something about this. It's impossible for you to do something about this other thing that I'm also endangering. So I know you're going to use your move to get your king out of danger. And so on my next turn, I'm going to screw you over in the way that you can't prevent. Well, that's like sort of the main sort of hook. And that's something I did not appreciate at all about chess until I started to kind of learn how to play it. And it makes it like a really, really fascinating game about sort of lateral thinking about like every single turn. Also, I have a section here where I want to talk about chess.com. It's really good. One of the things I like is I don't actually play that much chess anymore. Chess.com and a bunch of different chess websites will give you daily puzzles. So they'll just show you a board in the middle of a game and you have to try and figure out what the best move is.
Oh, that's smart.
It's so great. And you get like points. If you do good, you get points.
Oh, I know you love points.
But if you do bad or you take too long, you lose points. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant score. My score at one point was like 1,600. It was so good. And then it got hard and I started doing really bad. And now it's like below 800. Shoot. But yeah, I think chess is really great, and it's a fun game for 2 players and for lovers and for new parents. I was reading a chess article on seriouschess.wiz, and it said that it's good for new parents because it helps you stay in love longer and make you live longer and be stronger. So, and
I think I have what I'm going to call a millennial disease, which is where if I am not good at something, the first few times I play it, I lose interest very quickly. So I'm just going to warn you, I am willing to play it.
Hell yeah. Right after we finish recording, you think?
No. But if...
I'll pin tomorrow lunch, come home.
If you continue to beat me over and over again, I may lose interest in
Well,
playing.
here's the problem is I'm going to come at you with the fury of a storm every single time. And you know that.
I know that.
You wouldn't like it if I didn't come at you with the full fury of the storm and the brunt.
Are you going to do like one of those things where I'm going to move a piece and you're going to go...
Yeah, like an anime villain every single time. Into my trap.
Yeah.
To be swallowed up by my mighty army.
And do a lot of like, ooh, interesting.
Oh, you went with that, huh? And then I'll get up and hammer dance. Chess.
I mean, I respect it. It's always seemed like a game of intellectuals, which I appreciate about it.
You're smart. You like games, smart games
but I'm street smart. I would
That's
say.
the problem.